Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa. It's just the two of us tonight. Just the two of us. You can sing along if you want, Matt, because I turned your microphone on. You don't.
But which microphone? Oh, look.
Yeah, see? Look. Well, because it had a big number 4 on it.
Ah.
So I figured it out. It was able to jump out there at me. These headphones sound weird. I haven't worn these ones in a long time. Do I sound okay? I'm not too loud, am I?
Nope.
All right.
Fine.
It's weird because these have been in my bag and I never use them. I use those other ones. And so I threw these on and said, I don't feel like walking into the other room and getting my regular headphones. And now it sounds super weird because these are like way more like technically
Are they like
advanced.
Noise canceling or whatever?
They're noise. I don't have the noise canceling on, but they're still very noise canceling.
Hmm.
And they're also super sensitive. Like I'm picking up that fan behind me. So, yeah. But we'll be fine. We are here to talk about the paranormal, not about our headphones, which we do each and every Saturday night. It's just myself and Matt Costa tonight because Moniz is, I don't know where Moniz is. He didn't tell us where he was going to be tonight. But Stephanie's in San Antonio, Texas. They went to the Alamo yesterday. I know what you're going to say.
Did they visit the basement?
I don't think so. There's no basement in the Alamo.
Are you sure?
That's what Jan Hooks told me. But
we should call her right now and
like drop what
Yep.
you're doing, go back to the Alamo.
Are the stars that bright?
Look, right. She's gonna call in from a payphone. I'm in Texas. We're like, no, you're not. Come on. No, really, I am. The stars at night. But no, she's down in Texas with John Brightman and Porter. I don't get invited to these conferences.
No.
They claim they don't want me.
Are you not allowed in Texas?
No, I'm as far as I know, I should be allowed in Texas. I've never been in Texas. I've flown over Texas. I've always wanted to go to Texas, but I don't know what it is.
I haven't heard too many ghost stories from Texas area.
Yeah, I've heard some.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure there's one of those haunted Texas books.
Yeah. I mean, Galveston is a town that has a lot of paranormal activity because that is a town that was decimated by a hurricane in the early 1900s. So a lot of Galveston has been dealing with ghosts due to that hurricane. But I'm sure there's probably quite a few out there. There was a lot of the different things that's gone on over Texas's history. 6 flags over Texas. They've been under 6 different flags. So. They've seen a lot of battles. They've seen a lot of fighting. They've seen a lot of unique things that have gone on in their history with the Mexican border wars and all that stuff. So I'm sure that they've probably found some pretty good haunted places. But it's Saturday night at a paranormal convention, so they're not ghost hunting. They're probably all at a bar somewhere partying, doing karaoke.
Probably.
All that stuff. Well, we're here doing the show. And we'll be joined a little bit later on by our guest tonight, Shane Sirois. He'll be joining us to talk about his work in the paranormal field. We'll also hopefully be checking in with Christy over at the Oliver House tonight because next weekend is our big Bridgewater Triangle Mysterious Middleborough event. And there are still some tickets available. So if you want to join us for that, definitely go to SpookySouthCoast.com right now and get your tickets. But we're going to be investigating 3 different locations next Saturday. The Oliver House, the Mayflower Masonic Lodge, and the Middleborough Town Hall. The 3 most famous haunts in Middleborough. We will be checking them all out in one night, and you can get your tickets now at SpookySouthCoast.com. Last week I had an event. Everybody else was scattered all over the place. I think Moniz last week was in Salem for Paroween. I think that was last weekend. I don't think it's this weekend. So that means that Moniz and I were like just a couple miles away from each other, but just doing completely different things last Saturday. We were at the Parson Barnard House in North Andover, which people had seen on Haunted Towns, and it looked like a really cool place, and people had been asking us to do some North Shore events. So we put this together with the Parson Barnard House, and it was a small group, just about 20 people because it's just a house. And we were pretty pretty low key, pretty laid back event. Everybody there had experience pretty much, so we didn't really worry too much about having it be very structured. And we kind of just let people do their own thing. So while we're doing the event, we walked up to the cemetery, which is a short walk from the house, and that's where the Barnards are buried, including Thomas Barnard. And we started looking over some of the gravestones of the Barnard family, and we realized that Thomas Barnard, whose house we were investigating, had passed away on October 13th of 1718. So we were only about a week. We were literally a week after, 8 days after the anniversary of his death. But we also realized that next year, October 13th, 2018, will be a Saturday night. And that will be the 300th anniversary of the passing of Thomas Barnard. So we are actually, I've already talked to the caretaker, Greg, and we have booked the house for October 13th, 2018. So we will have an event there on that date. So this is the first time that we've ever announced an event a year in advance. But we secured that date because we were making some great connections in that house, and we want to go back and help. Because the whole thing with Thomas Barnard is people have tied him into the Salem witch trials as being one of the accusers. And in all actuality, he was trying to calm down some of the witch hysteria. So he's gotten a bad rap over the centuries. So we were trying to help with that reputation. So that's what we're going to do next year, is we're going to observe the 300th anniversary of his passing by reaching out to him both at the cemetery and at the house. So it'll be a while before we put those tickets up for sale, but just keep that date open on your calendar if you want to join us for that. But so there's stories that at one point this house was used as a boarding school for boys, and there was a teacher, I forget the last name, but his first name was Simeon, and he was not very nice to the boys. He would beat them and abuse them. And so at one point we're all in the attic. Before we even got to the attic, one of the stories is that something in that house will throw pennies at you. And so they have a couple of pennies that they keep up on a dresser in that room. So I had my flashlight next to where the pennies are, so that, if anything went over there and tried to touch the pennies, maybe it would set the flashlight off. And I made sure I secured the flashlight so that it wouldn't go anywhere. And we are trying to coax whatever's there to throw the pennies at us. And there were two pennies. There's a penny from the year 2000 and one penny from the year, I think it was 1979 or whatever. And so the older penny, I took it in my hand and I had everybody kind of hold it for a few minutes to charge it up to see if maybe we could pass off some electricity, some energy onto it. And then we put that up on the dresser, and we said if it throws a penny, it'll be interesting to see which penny actually gets thrown. Well, as we're sitting there trying to coax it to throw this penny at us, all of a sudden my flashlight comes on for a second and then just gets knocked off the dresser, which was kind of cool. But, we're trying to recreate it, see, did it roll? Is it possible that it just, rolled off after a couple seconds? But the fact that the light came on first, maybe something touched it. So anyway, so we're up in the attic because I said, let's find a nice quiet place where we can sit in pitch blackness and try and just kind of feel out the house. And so as we're up there, it was really strange because you could feel some sort of a tension in the air. And you know how when you sit in a dark room, after a while, your eyes start to adjust? And then you can see a little bit in the dark. Obviously, we're not going to see well in the dark, but you can see something, right, Matt? You know what I mean,
right?
Like after a while, if you hold your hand up in front of your face, you can see your hand,
right? I mean, when the lights go out at first, you're kind of blinded, but after time, your eyes get used to it. Yeah, you adjust, your pupils dilate, you can see a little bit better in the dark. Well, this was so weird because our eyes never adjusted. We could never. We were holding our hands up in front of our faces and couldn't see it. It's like the atmosphere was that thick. And we were having shadows that we were kind of walking by us. And it's like, how come we can see those, but we can't see our hands? It was just really strange. And so I pulled out Echovox and we started communicating with the boys that were kept up in that attic. And they started telling us their names, and we're talking to William, and I forget the other names, but I just remember William coming through quite frequently. And we asked them, are you afraid? And they telling us they're afraid. And we're like, what are you afraid of? And Simeon comes out of the Echovox. And it came out of the Echovox on multiple occasions. I'm like, well, that's really weird because that's not a common name either. I don't know too many people that have been named Simeon, except the quarterback for the Broncos, but that's his last name. So anyway,
I come up with the idea because, we're getting all this activity going on. I said to one of the women, I said, well, you're a girl. Why don't you try? If Simeon's the kind of guy that wants to beat up kids, I'm sure he wouldn't take too kindly to a woman kind of calling him out. So one of the women that were there starts calling him out, and immediately he just called her a bitch, which I thought was pretty strong and profound. And it was just, this went on for, over an hour. And
so
it was just
the name
crazy
was Simeon?
intense.
Or?
That was his first name. I can't remember his last name. Like historically.
Oh.
And that was the name of the person that was the teacher. And then to have that also come through the Echo Box was pretty cool.
That is interesting.
Yeah, we had all kinds of weird experiences happening up there. But it's definitely a great place. And so, like I said, we're going to go back for the 300th anniversary of Thomas Barnard's passing on October 13th, 2018. So keep that date open on your calendar, and we'll have information as the date gets closer. But like I said, next Saturday night, that's Mysterious Middleborough. And, we're just getting the plug out of the way. Christy's going to try and check in with us in the next few minutes from the Oliver House, just to kind of let us know about all the interesting things that have been going on there over the last couple of weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing there. And then Shane Sirois will join us in just a few moments also to talk about his work in the paranormal. And then just for a few moments at the beginning of the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to have a conversation with the... We're going to talk to Kevin Raper, who is the son-in-law of R. Gary Patterson. And we lost Gary a few months ago. We had an episode where we paid tribute to Gary, and of course, it's still very raw that we lost one of our idols and one of our favorite people in the paranormal world. But they've found a way to keep his work alive, and so they're going to join us to talk about this new project that they have, which I think is great. And I've heard little bits and pieces of it, and I think people are really going to like it. So they'll join us in just a few moments, a little bit later on in this show. And then we want to have them come back for a full show, or at least part of a show, to talk a little bit more about Gary's legacy and some of the ways that they plan on keeping his work alive, because there's not enough people doing what Gary did. Putting in the work, putting in the time, making the personal connections to get these stories about rock and roll legends and curses. I mean, just look at a lot of the paranormal stuff. People just go online, they find things, they find stories, they find firsthand accounts, whatever, and they'll write about it, but they don't take the time to get to know the people and to get the real inside information and to convey the emotions that are involved. And that's something that Gary always did. So like I said, we'll find out a little bit more about what they have in the works and how they're keeping our Gary Patterson's memory alive. So that'll be a little bit later on in the show, just after the 11 o'clock news. And you can call in at any point, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. And of course, the chat room is open at SpookySouthCoast.com, Spooky TV. You can watch the show as you listen. Is there what was I just going to ask you, man? I don't know. You don't know what I was going to ask you. Just went out of my head. Talking about the live stream.
Right. In the chat room.
Yes, talking about the chat room.
All the ways that you can interact.
All the ways you can interact.
Spooky Live.
The app. We have the app. Download the free app. And I feel like there's something that I'm missing here that I wanted to bring up. Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about. I wanted to bring it up on the show and publicly point out.
What's this?
The spooky clips. These things are taking off.
Right.
And spooky clips are, if you haven't gone to our YouTube account, I mean, if you go to the YouTube account, you'll see Matt takes out some of the best moments of the interview, some of the best moments of the show, makes little smaller clips of the show. So, of course, we want you to watch the entire program. But if you don't watch the entire program, or if you don't have time to sit and watch it and you just want to get a feeling of what it was about, these clips are great. Well, these spooky clips, I want to put the word out to everybody out there. They're also very shareable. So take those clips and put them up on your Twitter page, put them up on your Facebook, share them, get the word out, help us promote Spooky South Coast, but also, you might know somebody that is interested in weird news stories, or somebody who's had a UFO experience that might want to hear about somebody else's, and it's a way to kind of give them a little bit of information and help without them having to sit and listen to an entire show. So Matt does a fantastic job of making the clips, and we just want you to help spread them around. That's what I've been meaning. I've been meaning to promote those clips for a couple of shows now. So, all right. Well, we have joining us on the line. I believe we have Christy on the line now. Christy, is that you?
It is I.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I think you're breaking up just a little bit, so I don't know if I'm losing your signal or not.
Christy, we don't have to break.
Hear me okay?
We don't have to break up. We can stay friends.
Well, I'd like for us to kind of stay together. Breakups can be nasty sometimes, and I like to be a happy person.
You are a very happy person. How's things going over there tonight?
It's been, as always, a very interesting night. I'm going to tell you the winner of the night is the phantom dog poop smell that we have smelled consistently off and on all night long across both groups of people who came out for the tour tonight. So the dog's been hot and heavy in the house tonight. We've had a lot of folks in the house that have taken some interesting photographs. They've been really snap happy with the cell phones, which we encourage here at the Oliver House. And a lot of people have felt as if they've had their shirt tugged on by a small person, both upstairs and downstairs in some of the older kitchens.
Wow.
Well, and I got to tell you something. Do you remember how a few weeks ago when you were here, we had the picture kind of fly off the wall and break the pottery? Yes,
that was very intense.
Yes, it was. Well, we moved the picture, and of course the glass is all broken out of it, so it's nothing to break in the picture anymore. We moved the picture and put it in the hallway below the stairs. There's a nail, and we put it there and hung it up, and apparently they don't like it there either, because it has come off the wall a few times.
Wow.
Yeah, so apparently we have really sucky taste in artwork.
Well, I mean, the photo's not, the picture's not that bad.
It's really not. It's kind of a warm, inviting picture, but apparently the energies that are here don't really care for it that much. And that's okay. But we had to test the theory and see if it was the picture or if it was the area that it was hung, in the old kitchen. But it seems to be that they just don't like the artwork.
Well, I mean, that was one of the more profound things that I've ever had happen, because it was at the end of the night. It was after people had left. We were all just kind of sitting in the room, and there's no way that it was anybody stomping on the floor above us. There's no way it was anybody banging on a wall. When you have every person that's in the room every person that's in the building directly in your line of sight, and something like that happens, there's no other word to explain it than paranormal, especially when we went in there and tried to figure out how it could have happened. And it would have taken some sort of force reaching up underneath the picture and knocking it off the wall because of the way that it was hung.
Exactly. It's, this house, it's, and as anybody who's handling properties and doing tours, like Rise Up, for instance, I'm sure that they can understand this, and other teams in the area who handle, like, the Lizzie Borden house and things. Once you're in here for a long enough period of time, you almost become accustomed to the things that the house it does, or the energies do in the house. So it's kind of like second nature to you. But then sometimes, just sometimes, from time to time, they do something completely incredible. And that night with the picture, that was a completely incredible night. We continue to have things move around, like objects moving in front of us. So since the picture, we've actually had cat balls rolling around on the floor and lighting up. So they have their moments where they're really strong here in the house, and we're lucky enough that we're in it to be able to experience it and share it with people.
And so I know that you guys also just investigated the town hall too, right?
That's correct, yes. We were only there for about 3 hours. It was a very, very short period of time. But it was enough, because while we were there and we were up in the main ballroom area, we had a lot of activity. We were sitting on the floor in the center of the ballroom, and you could hear the floor popping around you as if somebody was walking around you. You could feel the floor beneath you as if somebody was putting weight on it. We were actually able to, with our audio recorders, capture some phantom piano music. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. which is unusual, but it was a beautiful piece of audio that we walked away at the end of the night with that, we shared to the people who did ghost tours this weekend at the town hall. And people were just blown away by it. But we've got no explanation for it. There is a piano in the town hall, but at the time it was recorded, we were in the balcony and nobody was near the piano, but it was just like somebody was sitting there playing it.
Right. So you were kind of in the same room as the piano.
We were in the main ballroom.
But you're in a different section of it.
Yeah, we were up in the balcony that overlooks the ballroom.
Yeah, it's like a big auditorium type setup. So
yeah, it is.
You're able to see out below you, and you could see if anybody would be down there.
Exactly. Yes. Now, the town hall, what's interesting about that is people who don't even, believe in the paranormal or really go out to seek it or experience it, they have a lot of experiences there. One of the most recent that seems to be a similar story from each particular person that witnesses this is an apparition that's as solid as you and me. He has color about him. It's a man in work clothes, and he appears and he's just walking through. And I think one of the people thought at first it was like a janitor, but it's not. It seems to be possibly the energy of the man who actually constructed the town hall, and his name was, I think, Solomon Eaton.
Yes.
Who passed away of a heart attack before the hall was completed, right before it was completed. So there's also a little girl that's there on the balcony area primarily. You can hear her, walking around and playing and humming and singing. There's multiple energies down in the basement. The basement is really an interesting space. I think you actually had experience down there before, didn't you, Tim?
I did. That's where I communicated with Ed Warren's spirit through the Echo Vox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did a very, very short stint. I bet we were probably in the basement, maybe 10, 15 minutes the night we were there. We were upstairs most of the time. But while we were there, we caught some incredible audio we opened a door, and this woman came through very clearly on our audio as if it was 30 years delayed. What that means, we're not quite sure. But you can hear our voices, and then you hear this other voice that is not any of the people that's down there come through very loud, just as a matter of factly, and make a comment when we open that door. So I think, when folks come out to the town hall, I think they're in for a real treat.
I think absolutely. And as I said, we still have some tickets available. If people want to get those tickets, they can do so at SpookySouthCoast.com. You can join in with us next Saturday night from Mysterious Middleborough. We're doing it to raise some money for the Oliver House restorations. You'll get to investigate the town hall. You'll get to investigate the Oliver House and also the Mayflower Masonic Lodge as well. And of course, we'll do the usual thing: pizza, dinner, and snacks and drinks and all that stuff too. And I think it's going to be a really. I'm just getting the feeling, Chrissy, it's going to be a really weird night.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. I can feel it kind of brewing. I think at all locations, there's a possibility that people are going to walk away and say, "Wow!" I mean, wow. Middleborough in general it's just an amazing place because it is a part of the Bridgewater Triangle. So, as you know from other towns, there seems to be just hot spots of this sort of activity. And these three locations that people are going to be able to go into are some of those major hot spots in this town. So it's worth it.
Absolutely.
It really is worth it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you next Saturday night, and I'm sure I'll talk to you before then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I hope everybody has a great night there, and y'all make sure to get online and get your tickets. We are so excited to bring you here to experience the Oliver Estate.
Absolutely. And you stay safe tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night. That is Christy Parrish over at the Oliver House. And again, you can join us next Saturday night. Go to SpookySouthCoast.com if you want to take part in that. All right. I'm going to bring up our guest right now. Hold on. And, of course, if you want to check out Shane's website, it's trueghost.com. He's been helping families and individuals for over 30 years. He has a rare 100% success rate at getting rid of nasty parasitic hauntings, which we're definitely going to talk about tonight. His understanding of the mechanics of what allows a haunt is untouched. He gets called in when investigators, demonologists, and clergy fall short in providing relief, and he has succeeded every time. Shane doesn't stop there. He's currently involved in several areas that have UFO sightings, Sasquatch sightings, and shadow people sightings. He's at the center of some of the biggest cases, and again, you can check out his website, trueghost.com, to find out more. And of course, we'll talk about some of these cases as well throughout the course of the discussion, but we welcome Shane Sirois to the show. Did I say it right, Sirois?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. See, and I was telling you kind of over Facebook that here on the south coast of Massachusetts, people take a lot of liberties with French names.
Yes.
So I've had multiple friends with the last name Dubois, and some are Dubois, some are Dubois, some are, even different combinations of that. So you can never be too
Benoit
sure.
versus Benoit,
Yeah, we have a lot of Benoits here, but no, we don't have any Benoits. We have Benoits.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's so strange. So I'm always very careful with the French names because you never know which way it's going to go. Well, for example, Jeff Belanger. Everybody knows Jeff Belanger in the paranormal, but in French it would be Belanger.
Right.
And in other places they pronounce it Bellinger. So all these different pronunciations for things.
Yep.
That's why I have a name that people can just butcher no matter where they are. It's not location specific. There's no dialect involved. It's always butchered. So you dealing with the type of hauntings that you deal with, dealing with parasitic hauntings. It's funny that we're talking to you now because this is the time of year when people are going out to different events, different haunted places. They're going out and kind of just trying to have a little bit of Halloween fun, and that Halloween fun can kind of turn around on people with the possibility of something latching onto them and following them home. I assume that a lot of the cases that you've dealt with probably have to do with people that have gone to these places looking for a thrill and come home with something that they didn't expect.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing with the use of the Ouija board. It's not the board that's the evil thing. A board's just a tool that focuses your attention on the possibility of an interaction. And when you give attention to the subject, you're opening yourself up because these parasitic entities need your attention. You give them something your attention, you're giving energy, and it's drawn towards that. And so, the next thing too is when people venture off into these situations, they don't want to obsess about that, about interaction, even though it's fun. You kind of got to be like, you got to kind of be open-minded, but you got to be level too, and you can't fear it. If there's an ounce of fear, even though we want that, it's kind of exciting for people, right? But that fear is also it's broadcast through your emotional frequency. So even if you're not acting afraid, these parasites know that you are, and you're going to become a target. It's a vulnerability that they look for. So the attention and the fear. So when you go off to a supposed local haunted place, I've had to deal with or help many people that got in trouble that way. Same thing, for the same reasons, the use of a Ouija board. And I've actually helped a lot of investigators who got into trouble. Some you guys might have even heard of, but I do it all behind the scenes and confidential and everything. But
sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I've helped out quite a few investigators that that were seasoned, but they found themselves in a little trouble.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing is you can have all the experience in the world with going into haunted places and feeling like you have a control of the situation, but we don't really know what it is that we're dealing with and what it's capable of. So even though you feel like you're in control, that control is probably a false illusion. And at any given time, things can go south pretty quickly. Yeah.
I mean, what I've years ago when I started this work, I unlearned everything I thought I knew, all the books I might have read. And growing up, at a very young age, my first paranormal experience was 41 years ago. And so going forward, it was just, in having a mechanical aptitude, it was trying to figure out what allows it, and I mean, not at a wicked young age, but as I got older, that was my purpose, was to kind of figure this out. And so I put in a process to identify trends, and I started connecting some dots and started to realize how these things operate and what initiates that haunt, what allows it to continue, what allows it to escalate. And so I've been doing this a long time, and I've helped thousands of people already, and in the way I've done it, once I connected those dots and kind of had an idea of what these things are going after, and I haven't failed one person, so I've been able to help every single person that's been afflicted by these parasites after, other people might have gone in after they called in their priests, or they had other groups in there who all kind of use the same types of tactics. Because that was another thing that I looked at when I started this work, is like, how come I'm going in after so many clergy, priests and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
How come I'm going in after so many groups? What are they doing differently than what I believe to be, the mechanics? And so I started to realize that they're basically using like paranormal against the paranormal. And what I do is I kind of go in there and I identify, the root cause, and I manipulate that. And so, and it might be different for different people, but there was a case that I did in Woonsocket, Rhode Island in 1998 that was actually, it was written about in the book and everything. But this guy was being attacked for 2 years solid, waking up in the middle of the night with this disfigured, he said, a hideous woman inches from his face. He'd just wake up, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, she'd be right in his face. And he actually went gray overnight after my first visit down there to do my initial, interview with him. And but first time I walked in, he goes, all right, he goes, something's up, because they were really acting up. And then about a half hour ago, they just got real quiet. They must know you're coming, And so we walked in the door, and as soon as we walked in, a lamp flew off his desk about 15 feet or so and hit him in the leg. And he goes, see, that's what I'm talking about. I could tell by his reaction that he'd been dealing with much worse for a long period of time, because it didn't startle him. That was nothing compared to what he's been dealing with. So there was other investigators involved before me that went into the basement, and they all doubled over with earaches and migraines. They had to leave. He had his Roman Catholic priest come in, bless the home. It got much worse after that. He asked the guy to come back. The guy came, got to the door, and said, "I'm sorry, I can't go back in there." So he had invited another investigator from the local town, and this guy ended up hearing about me online, and he says, I really think that you can help me. Will you come down? I said, sure, absolutely. I said, but I want to make sure I'm not stepping on the toes of this other investigator, because I normally work alone. I'm willing to work with him, whatever it takes to help you, get you relief, because I could really tell this guy was traumatized and dealing with a lot. So, excuse me. So the guy agreed, and I agreed to work with him, and we went down, and it ended up being Paulino, who now is like a brother of mine. We're real close friends, and I co-host on his radio show quite often. But anyway, so what I asked this gentleman, because I need to kind of figure out what this parasite's feeding off of. So I asked him, how long have you lived here? He said, my girlfriend's lived here for 11 years. I've lived here for 6 years. I said, how long have you been being attacked? He said, only the last 2 years. I said, so something happened 2 years ago that changed your emotional state of being, or sent shock waves through this environment that changed things. I mean, it had to have been something dramatic that really lowered your emotional, state of being, or whatever, your frequency. Because I find it's like a two-way radio with these things. They need us at a certain frequency, if you will, or at a certain emotional state in order to connect with us. And that's how I treat it. I elevate people's emotions. I get them out of the spot that they're at, and it breaks the connection. These things just disappear. But now, so I said, what changed 2 years ago? He goes, actually, it all started three weeks after I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Now, pancreatic cancer doesn't have a good, it's not a good thing. There's no good turnout with that. So, he was put on meds. Because of the meds, he couldn't work, and who would want to anyways. And so he was at home, just doing nothing but soaking in negativity and just thinking about the fact that he's probably going to die. He was also a Vietnam vet, a hero, who witnessed his friends being blown up in front of him. So he had all these bad memories, and he was also a recovering alcoholic. He had been recovering for like 2 or 3 years, and also, the cancer thing and the Vietnam memory. So all this negative stuff, it lowered his emotional state of being, but it also exposed that vulnerability. Now he's vulnerable, and that's what these parasitic entities look for. So they popped in and they just latched on, and they were absolutely tormenting and doing everything they could to keep him down and keep him where they wanted him, you know. So there was another investigator that I brought there who was older than me and you know, fooled me into thinking that he was much more experienced. I won't say his name, but he's off the scene anyway. But what he witnessed there, I mean, all kinds of things moving, but also like huge discharges in the basement. And I'm not talking about just like sparks or lights. I'm talking about things that looked like, you know, long gray ropes that were just flying through the basement. He got also surrounded by something, an energy, freezing cold, and he wouldn't move for like a half hour. And finally, you know, I cut ties with him. I said, "You can't do this work anymore. You got a paranoid personality for one, and these things gonna chase you. You know, you can't go into one location without being attacked, because he was just the wrong type of person for this type of work." So
right, yeah.
He ended up forming his own little thing, getting his own website, and he this is a guy that had a very expensive home, lovely wife, great job. He lost everything, lost his wife, lost his house, lost his job, everything. He's living in a trailer home somewhere now, and because him dabbling in this ruined his whole life, because he just the wrong character. So, but anyways, this gentleman, I said, what we have to do is we have to get you on a more positive path. We got to change your internal dialogue, because right now it's focused on negative things. So if we change your thinking, we're going to change your frequency. We're going to kind of break that connection. So I said, volunteer at a soup kitchen, go for walks, do anything that makes you feel good about, more positive and better about yourself. So he actually did that. He volunteered at a soup kitchen at a real old stone church in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. But that church was also scheduled to be torn down. So he led a fight to save it from being torn down. And he was on the newspaper. He was on the nightly news. So he had drive. He had purpose. He had something positive that he was doing that changed his internal dialogue. And not only did the entity just disappear after 2 years, his cancer went into remission. But with X-ray, there's no signs he ever had cancer. And that was in 1998. He's still alive today. And he's in the nursing home, but he's still alive, cancer-free.
Well,
and that's it.
I was going to say, it sounds like then that obviously you have some abilities, some knowledge, some skills in dealing with this, but it also sounds like to a large degree, you're helping the person to do it themselves. You're kind of coaching them into being who they need to be able to fight these things.
Absolutely, because this is what a lot of the, and I'm not attacking any religion, although there are religions that are supposed to be of a higher spiritual nature, but they use fear, and I don't like that. I don't like religions that use fear in people, because those are the types of worshipers that end up getting possessed, because they live with that fear of all this stuff. But it's a whole different conversation. But we absolutely are participants in the interaction, even if we don't realize it, even if it's our subconscious. We almost allow these things sometimes without knowing it, but we are participants. There is an exchange that happens, even if we're unaware of what we are contributing to the situation. But we have to change certain things about ourselves, because we have to be in a certain state in order to be connected to these things. They might jump in every once in a while and to see if they can get a spike out of you, and if they're not getting what they need, they disappear. But they really need, and I tell all my clients and everyone else, and I help a lot of investigators too on their cases. That's mainly what's been keeping me. I've been doing a lot with other investigators and other groups who are kind of stuck with their cases, but it's fear, negativity, and attention, which usually turns into an obsession. So fear, negativity, and attention to the subject, those things need to be eliminated from a negative haunt. When you can do that successfully, and it's not always easy, because you can't tell somebody, hey, don't be afraid when that chair goes flying across your room, if they're totally afraid of it. But it takes them to I really have to sell that idea to them and make them believe, so they have that inner strength. And that's when I find when religion does work, is if the religion has an impact on the person, it's not the effect that it has on the institute, because I've been in so many times where people have tried the religious aspect, and it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work is because it didn't have the right effect on the individual that was being attacked to get them to in a proper place, an emotional state where they could break that connection with this thing, where they're not where this entity wants them to be, and they take off. So when it has worked, it's because the person had the faith in the process, and they got them to where they needed to be. So that's when long time ago, I was connecting these dots and saying, how come it works sometimes, how come it doesn't, and how come people can use different types of tactics, whether it's smudging or this or that. There's all kinds of different techniques. How come all of them work sometimes and sometimes they don't? And they're all just tools to manipulate us and to get us to where we need to be to break that connection. So, and that's what I find. And fortunately, being someone that loves doing this work, and I've been able to help everyone that's reached out to me, and because if I couldn't, I wouldn't continue to do it.
Well, but I think that's part of the reason why you've had such a success rate is because you are empowering the individual. And I think a lot of other folks that are trying to do the paranormal cleanup work are kind of looking at it as, I have this skill myself, or I have this ability, or I have this knowledge. And by taking yourself out of it and kind of putting that power in the person, I can understand why you have such a success rate, because they have to be on board with the plan. They can't, it's like anything else. You can't be expecting somebody else to do the work for you.
You're absolutely right. And, because I see a lot of, like exactly like you said, and some even go into it with almost an ego, and these investigators thinking that they have some kind of control over this situation, and really it has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with anything. This person has an interaction going on with an entity. So it's between those two. So I started to realize, how come, like I said, we can't just get rid of this entity if it doesn't want to go, but if we can manipulate the person that it's attacking and get them to change, then that interaction between the two of them is manipulated, it's changed, and the connection is broken. So it really is that way. And I did a case not too long ago, and this group reached out to me. They're kind of well known in the New England area, and they said, can you help us with this? Because it's two homes side by side. They're owned by the same family. Well, one's a home and one's like an apartment building, but one of the family members lives in one of the apartments in the other side. Anyway, but they got things going on in both places. So in the apartment building, they did a smudging or whatever, and they blocked up this room from the hallway into a baby's nursery, because the baby was screaming in the middle of the night and everything. Whenever they put it in there at certain points, it would start screaming. So they smudged and they blocked off the door, and they said that nobody can pass through this door because they'll let the entity back in and all this other stuff. And I said, well, with all due respect, that's absolutely the wrong approach. I mean, and I didn't belittle them. I talked to them in private, and I said, here's why. I was trying to teach them, because by doing that, you're giving power back to this entity. You're letting him manipulate your life. These things, you can't let them dictate what you do in your life. And once you do that, you're empowering them, and you're giving them exactly what they need. They're more in control. What we need to understand is we actually have more control over them than they do us when we have the right information. So that we stopped that right from get-go. I educated both family members, and also what I found out with the baby. Now this was quite simple that other people had missed. This poor baby, and this is not something that I like to talk about, was abused heavily when it was very, very little, like 4 months, and it was in a body cast. And so it was living with this family that it was a family member, but it wasn't their baby, and they were taking care of it. But anyway, so I said, I went into the room, and I'm sensitive. I'm very scientific, but I'm sensitive to things, and what I was feeling was different than what they were describing. Their interpretation of things, and what I just sensed was an EMF, and not associated with an entity, but like of bad wiring, or you get off of electrical equipment, and I get like a reverse pressure on the top of my head, and I can really tell that that it's something of that nature. So over where the crib was, I put the my EMF detector on the wall, and it just spiked way up high. And so I asked them about the wiring. They said, "Oh yeah, but the husband was an electrician, and he was in the process of redoing all the wire, but he hadn't got to that wall yet." And I'm telling you, it was like bang, it was pegging. It was huge for uninsulated wiring. It was higher than it should have been. But when the baby was in that bed, that's when it was screaming. But when they brought it over to the changing table over by the door that they close off, it wouldn't scream. I said, "So it only screams when it's in this crib?" And they said, "Yes." So it was reacting to the EMF. So I told them to move it away. They did that. Everything's fine. And I educated the family, because one of the homes, the main home, actually, I did encounter something down the basement. It was running from me, but I could tell there was something there. But I educated them, and there was a lot of people living in that home, so there's a lot of personality, and with that we get a lot of conflict and stuff. So I educated them on all that, and the importance of being positive, and relieving the house of any negative stuff. And if you get mad, just go for walks. And I said, and don't obsess about it, and always think about, what's the ghost going to do now, because if it's in your mind, you're just broadcasting that you want to play or whatever. That's what this thing thinks. You're gonna pay attention to me. I'm gonna mess around. And so, but I educated both families, and that was that one visit I went there, and I just got a update. It was like a couple years ago. I just got an update from that group, and they said that they're still problem free, so they haven't had any issues since. And that's all I did. After all these other groups went in there and tried to use the other tactics, the holy water and the staging and the smudging and stuff, that didn't work. And I just educated them and got them in line with a more positive path, and how to communicate better with one another and live together. And that it was that simple. I mean, so.
But when you're with situations like that, I mean, people create their own negative situations, and I'm sure that a lot of times you're getting called into cases where sometimes there might be something that's happened paranormally, but also you're dealing with a lot of the human element of things too. Does that kind of foster more bad things? What I mean is that it's not necessarily something paranormal that followed somebody or attached itself to somebody, but just the fact that they are creating this negative environment around themselves, and it just so happens that they've also had something paranormal going on as well. But it's the people that are causing this evil more than it is something that could attach themselves to them.
Well, what I found is, when people get, there's all kinds of different emotional states of being that seem to trigger these parasites. And just because you had a bad day doesn't mean, okay, well, now my house is going to be haunted. It's not the way it works. But there's a prolonged process, and also there's other geological things, components that actually will make it more probable too. And I found that out. But with us, it absolutely is our emotional state that's actually attracting these things to us. So there's different reasoning for that. So sometimes I have to be a drug counselor, or a marriage counselor, or whatever. And I have a background in all that stuff, So and so I'm able to get work with people on that. But they lived in the same house for 20 years, but yet it's only been the last month that they were being attacked. So there's got to be a reason for that. So what changed a month ago? And every single time I ask that question, I get the answer. And there's always something that had changed dramatically. And that's what triggered this parasite. That's what this parasite said, okay, this person's in a vulnerable state. I'm going to mess with them. And that's just how it works. And I just get them back to where they need to be, in a more positive path, get them off of whatever, that internal dialogue, wherever they are at the moment is obviously not a good place. So let's change it. Let's manipulate, that, and those mechanics, and it works.
I do think that people can kind of create that palpable sense of whatever. So it could be something negative. It could be something positive. I think if people kind of band together, and I talk a lot in my lectures that I give about thought forms and tulpas and things like that, things we're putting out with our own energy. And I'm sure that probably plays a part in what you do too, where, sometimes maybe people are putting out the vibe that even though they don't realize it, they're almost welcoming these things to come in and attach to them. They think that they're safe, or they think that they're living a good life, but they're not realizing that just their day-to-day existence makes them attractive for something to come and feed off of.
Oh, absolutely, exactly. I mean, that's exactly how that works. And I did a case not too long ago where the, the lady, she actually seemed to enjoy being a victim, and it's like, you know, I can help you when you're ready for help, but you actually enjoy this,
Yeah, when you want to be the center of attention, one way or another, good or bad.
Exactly. So I said, you're looking for it, and you're opening yourself up for it, and you seem excited by it. But then when something really bad happens, then but at the same time, she still enjoyed it. She had that victim like mentality, and those are the hardest ones to treat when they just like I said, a victim like mentality, and they seem to enjoy it. Almost sometimes it's attention, and just sometimes it's just because they're used to being a victim. So if I can get them out of that mentality, and it's hard because those people with that that are used to being the victim usually have a troubled past, and so you have to really dig deep a lot of times, and so it can be difficult. Like I did, I don't know if yeah. Anyways, let me know if you need to take a break or whatever. But anyway,
well, actually, I made the decision because I was so interested in what you were saying. I totally blew through our network news. So, but I do have to fire off the legal ID. So we'll do that. We'll be back in 10 seconds.